Hey, how's it going everyone? This is Faceless Opinion. Welcome you back to another video. I think we can all agree that in any long-running franchise, whether it be games, movies, books, anime, etc., that there's always going to be one entry that is the weakest of the bunch. One that doesn't reach up to the standards set by the others. For some, they consider it to be the worst. It's no secret that I like the Infamous games, and the same rules apply. For me, Infamous Second Son is what I would call the black sheep of the flock. For the record, I do not hate Second Son. I think it's a fine game that has some good things going for it. I just think that it has a fair share of problems that kind of hold it back. Before we talk about what it did wrong, I want to talk about what it did right, because it does some things better than its predecessors. For one thing, the graphics are phenomenal. This is a very gorgeous game and a clear improvement from Infamous 2. Another great thing about Second Son would be that the power system is at its best, especially with the introduction of unique powers, smoke, neon, and video being the prominent ones. I also love the spray paint mechanic. It was a fun little addition, and how it made use of the controller was neat. Okay, with that out of the way, let's begin the breakdown. The lore of Second Son is a bit baffling. What I mean by that is that this game takes place after the good ending of Infamous 2. For those who have played it, you know what I'm getting at. For those who haven't or don't remember exactly what happened, allow me to explain. In an attempt to defeat the beast and cure the Rayfield plague, Cole McGrath activates a device known as the RFI, which is able to eradicate the plague, but also results in the death of all conduits across the globe. Did you pay attention to that last bit? The death of all conduits. Yet, that clearly isn't the case in Second Son, since it takes place 7 years later. Explain to me how that makes a lick of sense. It also doesn't help that they don't even address the issue. I know that in the Cole's Legacy DLC, it brings it up, but never gives us an answer to the question of how. From a narrative perspective, this game fails to justify its own existence. I know why it exists. Money. The only reason I could think of where it could bypass this blatant plot hole is by either A, retconning Infamous 2's ending, or B, terrible writing. And I don't know which is worse. Whatever it may be, the biggest sin of all is that it tarnishes both of the endings of Infamous 2. I love both endings. If you were so gung-ho on making a sequel, you should have done it with the evil ending. It would have been the most logical, but no, you wanted the good ending to be canon. I'm not mad. I'm not mad that Second Son exists. I want you to know that. I'm just sad that it's at the expense of Infamous 2's endings. There are only two characters in this game that I legitimately like. Those two being Reggie and Fetch. In my opinion, Reggie has the best character arc in the game, from initially not liking and being distrustful of conduits, to then being willing to help them and refers to them as people, and not the slur bioterrorist. Not to mention, I consider him to be a funny character. Case in point, look at the mission, Reggie Takes Flight. That had me rolling on the floor. I also think he's kinda badass. Him telling off Hank, and that rocket launcher scene with Augustine, 10 out of 10 content right there. I miss Reggie. Can I get an F in the comments for our boy Reggie Rowe? While in the case for Fetch, what can I say about her? I think she speaks for herself. She is universally loved by the fandom, gaining so much popularity she got a spin-off all about her. Infamous First Light, which I highly recommend playing if you never have before. I give it my seal of approval. Play it! But after this video. For the rest of the cast, they're hit or miss. Some are okay, others are not. Starting with our main protagonist, Delson Rowe. When it comes to Delson, I have mixed feelings. I don't dislike him, but I don't like him either. When playing Second Son, he comes off, to me, as a bit of a tryhard, where I feel like you're supposed to like him because he's your average guy who lives in a sleepy little town and discovers that he has powers, thus making his boring life more exciting, who thinks that he gets to go on some kind of adventure. His attitude through the story is mostly carefree, which bothers me to a small extent. I have no issue with a character who isn't serious. I really don't. What I have an issue with is them not taking anything seriously. I remember two scenes where Delson drops the laissez-faire attitude and gets serious. The scene where he temporarily loses his powers and tells Reggie that he's not going to run away from the DUP, and he will throw rocks at them if need be. The second being Reggie's death. The rest of the time, it is void of it. Even when we have moments that could be considered serious, like when he discovers he is a conduit, or not being allowed on the bus because of it, they are pushed to the side immediately afterwards and hardly mentioned again. I don't think that Delson needs to be this rigid, lack-of-fun person. I just believe that he should have a greater sense of urgency since he is on a quest to save the members of his tribe. Also, Delson is supposed to be funny, but I don't think he is. The only thing I heard him say that I would consider funny was when he was in the longhouse and Reggie asked him if he can still do the smoke trick, with Delson responding with, "I don't know, there's no smoking in the longhouse, remember?" That was good. Everything else is eye-rolling and groan-inducing. Eugene could have been a great character, but his portrayal and overall role in the game is disappointing. You have a character who I would consider is one of the strongest conduits throughout the entire series. Being able to manipulate video made him stand out a lot more compared to others, yet so very little is done with him. He is relegated to being nothing more than a stereotypical nerdy gamer boy who is bullied a lot, causing him to become a recluse. How original. Also, did you guys know that Eugene's mom is a congresswoman who supports the DUP? If you didn't, I won't hold it against you. The only way you'll learn that is from a loading screen, not from the actual story. They could have done a lot more with Eugene. Show us how the 6 years locked up in Kern K affected him, or how his mother took the whole conduit thing. I would have loved to have seen Eugene fleshed out more. Alas, he had to suffer from wasted potential syndrome. Speaking of a waste, let's talk about Becky. Wait, Becky? I'm sorry, I meant to say Betty. I will apologize for getting her name wrong, but with how little relevance she has in the grand scheme of things, you would have gotten her name wrong too. All jokes aside, I feel like Betty was supposed to be important, and thus we were supposed to care about her, especially when the DUP started torturing her and the rest of the tribe, which is the driving force that causes Delson and Reggie to go to Seattle, to save the tribe and Betty. However, I feel unbothered by it, mainly because we know so little about her. What is her relation to the Rowe brothers? She must have a close connection to them if she was willing to cover for Delson's mischievous behavior when Reggie was looking for him, and was able to withstand being tortured by the DUP and not rat out Delson as a conduit. I know that Betty was never going to be a mainstay character, but if she is the reason why Delson is doing what he is doing, then I expect more, even though her abysmal screen time doesn't do her any favors. Henry Daughtry. Hank. Oh, Hank. How predictable you are. From your supposed death at the start of the game, to a lackluster return, then to a betrayal that a blind person can see a mile away. The only good thing he did in this game was give Delson his smoke powers. That's it. I just don't understand why Hank returned that Delson thought he needed his help. He was more than able to make do on his own at that point, with having access to smoke, Fetch's neon, and Eugene's video, as well as having them both as allies, and with Reggie in his corner, Hank is not needed. But no, Delson decided to trust a man who is a career criminal and has not formed any type of connection with, which in turn leads to Reggie's death. To make matters worse, the devs had the audacity to put in a BS moral choice so that the player can spare Hank's life, by adding in the nonsense of him having a daughter who was never referenced nor foreshadowed any time earlier, who was not mentioned in Hank's flashback where Delson absorbed his powers, and is the point when you get the exposition of that character, he randomly has one. Hell, she doesn't even have a name, yet this is the reason we are given not to end Hank. Screw you! I don't care about his asshole of a daughter. Hank deserves a chain around his neck, and you're not changing my mind on it. Then we finally come to the antagonist of the game, Brooke Augustine, the concrete queen herself. I don't like Augustine. I won't put her on the same level of contempt I have for Hank. She is not that unbearable. Where I have issue with her would be her role as main antagonist, particularly her motives. In order to protect conduits from the population, she hunts them down with the DUP and locks them up in a prison known as Curtain K. On a surface level glance, that sounds reasonable. However, when we dive deeper, the issues start to rise. Firstly, what is the end goal? What are you going to do if you catch all the conduits? Are you going to relocate them to a remote island and form a new society? Use them to overthrow the government, revolution style? Because if your whole plan was to have them stay locked up in your prison for the rest of their lives, that is just plain stupid. Did she really believe that the people she has locked up there would be happy with that? It would be fair to speculate that the overwhelming majority of inmates were innocent people who were forcibly detained, whose only crime was having powers. Some probably deserve to be locked up. Hank is an obvious answer. In Augustine's flashback, we see that she has witnessed mobs of people lynch conduits, any that they can find, and she, as well as a little girl she stumbled upon, whom was a conduit as well, had to survive in that lawless city until the military showed up to regain control. I feel like this was supposed to make Augustine more sympathetic. It doesn't. It makes her look worse. Going around the country with her Gestapo, branding innocent conduits as bioterrorists, treating the people in her custody horribly, in some instances torture, case in point Eugene, as well as lying to the public and spreading misinformation, using the conduits you supposedly want to protect as weapons to cause chaos, and assaulting innocent people that have done literally nothing to you. She jabs concrete daggers inside all the people of Salmon Bay, Delson's hometown, and left them all to die. Augustine is not a savior. She is a vile, petty, self-centered bitch who's only interested in looking out for herself. Remember earlier in the video when I said that the power system was at its best? Yeah, allow me to introduce you to Concrete, the biggest disappointment of this game. To understand what I mean, we have to discuss the relevance of the concrete power in the game. The entire plot hinges on Delson absorbing Augustine's powers so that he can save the people of his tribe. And with Augustine being the main antagonist, it would be logical that we would not get the power until the near end. It makes sense, but it also doesn't give you an opportunity to use it more, especially in a lacking post-game, which I'll touch up on later in the video. Throughout the game, we see how the DUP and Augustine make use of concrete in many different ways, showing us that concrete is a power unlike all the others. Fast forward to the end, we finally get to see what concrete is made of, and then you realize it's not as good as you were expecting it to be. For example, I do not like Boulder Dash and the concrete thrusters. I think they're arguably the worst powers for a traversal. Why couldn't we have had the launch ability that the DUP have to jump up buildings? Or even better, give us a dig ability to where we can burrow underground and pop back up like a prairie dog. That would make it stand out further from its counterparts. To replenish the power meter or swap out for concrete, you have to absorb it from the DUP soldiers, which I find kinda weird. I can understand why you're not absorbing it from the ground. That would be kinda broken if you could. But wouldn't it make for a better alternative if you could absorb the concrete from all the fortifications that the DUP built throughout the city, instead of the only enemy faction in the game that has said ability? I think the biggest disrespect that concrete gets in this game is that it does not get a Karma Bomb. Spoke has Orbital Drop, Neon has Radiant Sweep, and Video has Hellfire Swarm, while concrete gets nothing. No ultimate. Could have had a stone version of Ionic Freeze, or create a landslide. Just an idea or two, since there was no effort put into this power. Concrete really deserved better. When comparing Second Son to its predecessors, this game is a lot shorter, with the first two games both having almost 40 story missions, while Second Son has a little less than half. However, I hear somebody say in the comments, just because it has a short campaign doesn't mean anything. There's always side content you can do. Fair enough, side content can make up for any grievances you might have with the main content. Even gives you something to do post-game. Side content in Infamous 1 and 2 was fairly good for the most part. Second Son, on the other hand, isn't bad, just lacking. It has nowhere near the amount of content the other games had, most of which are things that you can slam through in a matter of minutes. The missions can also come off as basic and not having the same level of creativity as others, and can feel boring for the most part. Like the only reason to do it is for 100% completion. What happened to the Karma missions? You'd think it'd still be in there. Where's the UGC content? Am I the only one that misses it? Comment down below what you guys thought about UGC. I felt like it could have added more to do. Enough talk about side missions, and let's talk about DLC. The only main title that has mission-based DLC, which consists of Cole's Legacy and Paper Trail. I have played neither, mainly because I can't access them. Cole's Legacy is only available on the European PlayStation Store, and Paper Trail isn't available since it's not your regular run-of-the-mill DLC, since it makes use of external media to access it. But worry not, I've done my research into both of them, and I'm willing to give my analysis. To be frank, none of them are that great. Cole's Legacy is incredibly short, and Paper Trail is more puzzle mystery type adventure that involves a lot of steps to play it. Like I said, Paper Trail is an odd one, something I might make a video on later in the future since it's really unique. Anyways, Second Son is just too brief of a game. It would benefit greatly from a longer story, like fleshing out more characters, expand upon the world, do more with Concrete, perhaps add in another enemy faction because it gets boring fighting the DUP the whole time. And no, I'm not counting the drug dealers and the Occurrence. They suck and are not real threats. This is just me spitballing here, but why not add in the First Sons? I think they would make an interesting addition, could help expand upon things. Hell, have the DUP go up against them. I would pay money to see those two duke it out. If only. In my Infamous is Underrated video, I went into detail about the Karma system as a whole. If you haven't seen it, I'll link it down in the description. Be sure to check it out. In that video, I made a comment that the Karma system gets worse with each main title, and that rings true in this one. The decisions that are given for you to make are nonsensical, like they were lazily added in because they needed to follow a quota. In previous entries, there would be some sort of deliberation of what the best choice could be made. I'll use this as an example.
A lot of food here. Enough to feed the three of us for weeks, maybe longer. Bet if I fry a couple people in the crowd, the rest will run away. The food will be all ours, but some of these guys might starve.
You can see that Cole is weighing his options, and that there's a thought process. Some choices I will question for being choices at all, but that self-reflection is still there. Second Son lacks that, and all you are given are two buttons with a simplistic answer. Yet, what point would there be to expand upon decisions which are clearly artificial and don't really matter? The only thing Karma affects is the ending, nothing else. When Reggie dies, no matter what your alignment is, he will always say that he's proud of Delsin. Keep in mind that Reggie is a cop and was shown willing to arrest his own brother for vandalism at the start of the game, and you're trying to convince me that he would be proud of a brother who has maxed out evil karma. What the hell is wrong with you? In Infamous 1, we have a similar situation with Cole's girlfriend, Trish. The only difference is that when she dies, the dialogue is different for whatever karma you have. With good karma, she says that she is proud of Cole and all the good he has done. While with evil karma, she is ashamed of him and dies despising him. I mean, seriously, how hard is that to do? One thing I will give this game credit for is when it comes to karma not changing your appearance. In the other games, if evil karma is chosen, Cole ends up looking pale and having black marks all over his face, while for Delsin it's just a change of clothes. I know it's a small thing, but that always irked me, so I'm more than willing to give Second Son a W for that. Everything else, not so much. Second Son has its issues, but I'm not going to say it makes it a terrible game. I believe it does some things right. It has good concepts, and if it had more time to cook in the oven, it could have been amazing, perhaps even great. Unfortunately, that isn't the case, and it is what it is. If I were to give Infamous Second Son a score, I would give it a 7 out of 10, but make it a low 7. If there are plans for a sequel following Second Son, all I ask is that they take their time and take some risk. If I were to work on a new game, I would have it follow the evil ending. We see Delsin, Fetch, and Eugene storming Curtain K, with Delsin absorbing the powers of all the locked-up conduits, while the player takes control of a new character, a prisoner who has just escaped during the commotion and now has to evade both the DUP and a power-hungry Delsin Rowe. That's my interpretation. Anyhow, comment down below what you think about Second Son. Don't forget to like and subscribe. More content coming out in the future. My next video won't be Infamous related. I would like to branch out and talk about other subjects, but if you want to see more Infamous content, I'm more than willing to deliver. Until next time, I will catch you all on the flip side.